With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, details on a collaboration to advance sustainable packaging in the fresh produce industry. We'll have more on that. But we're starting our day today with Cindy Zimmerman.
The annual American Coalition for Ethanol Conference is coming up on August 14th through the 16th in Omaha. I'm speaking with Katie Muckenhern, Vice President of Public Affairs. And Katie, give us some details on the upcoming ACE conference.
Yeah, we've hit 37 years of hosting this event for biofuel producers, farmers, and just others in the industry. And we're returning to Omaha August 14th to the 16th. We'll be at the Marriott downtown at the Capital District. And it's a 2.5-day event, and we pack a lot into our agenda, a mix of general sessions covering things like maximizing on tax credit opportunities under the Inflation Reduction Act, looking at the retail marketplace for E15 and E85, farm to biofuel carbon market collaborations. We got a trade update. And then, we have our breakout sessions take a deeper dive into, we have 3 different tracks: leadership and management, technology, and carbon topics. So our agenda is really shaping up here with just a few weeks left to go.
Well, your theme this year is the gold standard. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, so the gold standard is our theme this year, and we thought it'd be fitting coming off of the Olympics and just lots of attention on the GREET model, and that's what we refer to as the global gold standard for biofuel life cycle greenhouse gas emissions. So, with the IRA tax credit guidance being rolled out here this summer, so we thought it'd be fitting for both of those. And we like to refer to our industry as, we believe, we're setting the standard for clean energy solutions. So that's why we chose the gold standard.
Is there anything different this year that people have to look forward to?
Yeah, well, a few different things coming up this year. We're launching an event app. We're using the platform Whova. So when you register, you'll get instructions on how you can download the app for our event. It's just a convenient way for attendees to access the agenda, any announcements that we may make, get more details about the speakers and tracks, and share, their experience on social, just, through their mobile device. So really looking forward to making the event a little more accessible for people throughout the event, and an easier process for check-in as well. And then one other new thing we're bringing to our agenda this year is our second night reception we're going to have outside. So if you've been to the Marriott in Omaha, they have a nice plaza behind the hotel. And so we're offering kind of an elevated reception on that second evening to enjoy the warm summer evening in August.
As far as the ethanol industry is concerned, what do you think are going to be the main topics of discussion among the industry members that are going to be at the conference?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. And, like I mentioned with our theme, the gold standard, the GREET model and 45Z guidance that's expected to come out here this summer, maybe hopefully before our conference. That's going to be a huge topic of discussion. Like I mentioned, we have our farm to biofuel panel talking about climate smart agriculture. That's going to be, a lot of interest for attendees, I know. One of our keynote speakers, Lee Blank, the CEO of Summit Carbon Solutions, he's going to give an update on their CO2 pipeline project. So I know that's going to be one of the highlights of our agenda too. And of course, trade is always a big topic. We have Mackenzie with the U.S. Grains Council joining us to provide an update there. And we have the Pro Exporter Network. They're going to dive into sort of the feedstock picture for sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel based on our current policy and regulatory environment. So lots of, we shape our agenda around, the timeliest topics that we can. And so really encourage attendees to attend, because it's a sort of a pivotal point here for the industry.
Well, yeah, so the conference is coming up August 14th through the 16th, which is, as we said, right around the corner. Where can people find out more information online?
Yeah, they can visit our website, ethanol.org/events/conference. We have all the details there. Registration is open. It'll be open up until the event. And like I said, we have the event app this year, and they can check out, all the different facets in the agenda. We just posted that, so they can check out the speakers, agenda, and everything from our website.
All right, thank you very much, Katie, and we will plan to be there August 14th through the 16th in Omaha for the ACE conference. I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm your host, Sabrina Halvorson. In today's National Spotlight, the nation is in the spotlight. Canada is one of the many nations watching the U.S. presidential election with great interest. Dennis Guy has more from Canada.
Canadians and many other people around the globe are watching what is being described as historic developments unfolding in the current American presidential campaign. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressed his disappointment at hearing President Joe Biden's decision to cease his campaign efforts for re-election. However, Trudeau was pleased to see Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris. Some Canadians in government, in politics, and in business believe the upcoming U.S. presidential election result might well have more immediate economic ramifications outside of the U.S. than any other election in recent memory. Mark Wiseman is a Canadian businessman and financier and currently the chairman of the Alberta Investment Management Corporation. Wiseman is formerly the president of the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, and he is also formerly chair of BlackRock Financial's Global Investment Committee. Wiseman believes that the world is watching how the current U.S. presidential election will unfold very closely, and he says the results of the November election might just have a more immediate impact on the world than it will on the United States itself.
I think this is the most important election for every country in the world except the United States of America. It matters to us in Canada. It matters to Europe. But if you think about the U.S., imagine the day after the election in November. If Trump's the president, do markets move? Probably not. If Harris is the president, do markets move? Probably not. I don't think that Trump or Harris is going to have a huge difference.
Mark Wiseman explains what he expects to see from a Harris administration and from a Trump administration through a globalist lens in the short term.
A Trump presidency probably means an extension of tax cuts, deregulation, increase in tariffs, which by and large is good for business in the U.S., at least in the short to medium term. A Harris presidency probably continues the path of Biden, more stimulus, increased spending, by and large, a positive story for business and for markets in the short to medium term. Longer term, bigger issues on either side.
While there is some support within Canada and other countries for the return of former U.S. President Donald Trump, it is also fair to say that support is not widespread. As an international investment banker, Mark Wiseman says the return of a Trump administration will be a challenge for Canada and many other countries.
We're more likely to have tariffs. A Trump administration can be knee-jerk in terms of its reaction, perhaps unwind all or part of the USMCA, which comes up for review in 2026. So I think for Canada, like Europe, like other parts of the world, a Trump presidency is going to be a big challenge, and I'm not sure we're ready for it.
Reporting from Canada, I'm Dennis Guy.
Several areas of the West have experienced an increase in wildfires over the month of July. Here's Rod Bain.
Wildfire activity has picked up in parts of the West over the past week.
We have seen our U.S. wildfire acreage explode to about 3.5 million acres by the middle part of July. That puts us ahead of our mid-July average of 3.1 million acres. So this is really the first time this year we've seen our U.S. wildfire acreage exceed the 10-year average.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says as of Tuesday, more than 6 wildfires were reported nationwide, with most in the western U.S.
We're actually looking at significant air quality degradations becoming a bigger concern, primarily in the Northwest, where we have some of our biggest wildfires.
With the 4 largest active wildfires reported in the state of Oregon. Rippey adds a strong ridge of high pressure over the west and high plains regions is recirculating smoke. Long-term relief is not expected from regional wildfires until the change in weather in the fall. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's the livestock report. USDA is going the extra mile to provide the information that operators of small meat processing plants need to thrive. Gary Crawford has more.
To help foster more competition in the nation's highly concentrated meat industry, the Agriculture Department is pushing ahead with plans and programs designed to expand independent meat processing capacity in this country by helping boost the production coming out of existing independent facilities and also building new ones.
We're announcing today USDA's intent to invest nearly $110 million to advance this action plan.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack telling reporters the other day about one part of that plan.
We partnered with the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund to work in partnership and collaboration with them to identify independent processors across the country who might be in need of additional resources to expand or to equip their facilities. So today, in partnership with that New Hampshire Community Loan Fund, we're providing more than $83 million in grants to 24 independent processors in 15 states under the Meat and Poultry Processing Expansion Program.
This brings total investment now up to $703 million for meat processing expansion projects in 48 states and Puerto Rico.
All of which help to provide a lower cost for working families, a more resilient food system, and obviously help opportunities for farmers to have more new and better markets.
With hopefully more than one place to go to do business. But operating, much less starting up a brand new meat and poultry processing business, can be more than just a financial challenge. It's also a complex technical and regulatory challenge.
It certainly can be. There's no question about that.
Paul Kicker runs the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, FSIS, which has been holding a series of round tables across the country designed especially to hear from those who are new to the meat processing business.
So we want to make sure that they have all the support that they need so that they're able to be profitable and to produce a safe and wholesome product.
This is Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Don't forget, if you've missed any of our morning shows or if you simply need to catch the news at a different time, you can subscribe to our podcast and have statewide agriculture news at your convenience. All you have to do is search for the AgNet News Hour on your favorite podcast downloading app. That's AgNet News Hour, and it's available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. We'll be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
Researchers from UC Davis have been studying the molecular changes in tomatoes during post-harvest handling and cold storage. Published in Horticulture Research, the study aims to establish optimal handling and storage guidelines to reduce food waste. Early harvesting and low-temperature storage disrupt the natural ripening processes, which can ultimately harm the fruit. Researchers monitored hormonal, genetic, and biological changes in tomatoes stored at different temperatures. The research found that tomatoes stored at 55.5 degrees Fahrenheit showed the most significant disruption but adapted better to storage conditions. Additionally, early harvest and storage in the dark affected gene regulation more than temperature alone. This research could help improve post-harvest practices, maintain flavor, and inform genetic modifications to avoid quality loss. Western growers in QFresh Lab are working together to improve sustainable packaging for fresh produce. The collaborative project is part of a larger effort with the Canadian Produce Marketing Association to create uniform packaging standards across North America. QFresh Lab, known for its expertise in sustainable packaging and post-harvest technology, will provide technical support, documentation, and strategies for implementation. Founder Jeff S. Brandenburg values Western growers' vast industry connections and scientific expertise. Packaging is key to maintaining quality and safety of fresh produce, but varying regulations can complicate this. The partnership aims to address these challenges by advocating for practical solutions, emphasizing the need for industry leadership to ensure quality and safety. The collaboration between Western growers and Q-Fresh aims to set a standard for sustainable practices. Farmers are being invited to submit applications for a Climate Smart Commodities grant project from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. A project with up to $4 million in funding aims to help 100 producers in the U.S., Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. It's being led by A Greener World, Rural Advancement Foundation International, and Soil Health Institute. It's part of a $3.1 billion federal initiative to support climate-smart farming practices. This project focuses on aiding small and underserved producers in adopting regenerative farming practices and reducing emissions. Enrollees will be provided with technical and financial assistance, as well as support in farm planning and soil health analysis. Farmers can express their interest by submitting a form by September 9th. More information about the project is available at agreenerworld.org/climate-smart. The USA Rice Ducks Unlimited Rice Stewardship Partnership is making more than $9 million in financial assistance available to California rice producers. The funding assistance being made possible through USDA's Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program. This competitive process will offer rice producers a suite of more than 30 practices to choose from to fit the needs and capabilities of their operation. Eligible practices include those with direct greenhouse gas reductions, benefit soil health, water efficiency, and biodiversity. Eligible producers with a history of harvesting rice may submit one application per entity by August 15th. The 3-year producer contracts will have an overall limit of $120,000 for individuals and partnerships. More information about the program is available at usarice.com/climate-smart. The California Cattlemen's Association is now accepting scholarship applications from current undergraduate and postgraduate students for the 2024 program. CCA scholarships not only assist students with their current education and future ventures, but help connect them with others involved in the industry. Applications for 2024 will need to be submitted by October 1st. Applicants must have graduated from a California high school or be an out-of-state student currently attending a California college in order to apply. Any CCA young, regular, or feeder members are eligible to apply for the scholarships, and past scholarship recipients are also eligible to reapply. Interviews for the awards will take place during the CCA convention in December at the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno. The application and full eligibility requirements are available at calcattlemen.org/scholarship. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
Food prices may be looking a little more favorable for consumers. That's coming up on This Line of Ours. USDA's latest food price forecast should be good news for shoppers. Gary Crawford has more.
Analysts at the Agriculture Department are projecting that food at the grocery store this year will likely cost us more than last year, but only about 1% more.
And that's compared to a 5% increase in prices that we saw for groceries in 2023.
USDA economist Megan Schweitzer told us even though we are only a bit more than halfway through this year,
I don't expect too much change in the forecast through the remainder of the year. We've sort of narrowed in on this right around 1% predicted change in prices. It's been the same for the past 2 months.
And while overall grocery prices are expected to rise, some food categories will cost less than last year. Fresh fruit almost 1% less.
And then a few other categories where we're predicting price declines in 2024. Fish and seafood by 0.8%. Eggs by 0.3%.
Milk and dairy by almost 0.5%. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. Are bugs bugging you at your cookout or picnic this summer? So, what can you do about the annoying pests? Gary Crawford has some advice from an expert on this edition of Agriculture USA.
It's summertime, 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 summer.
Yes, it is here, full force, and out there on the Major League Baseball diamonds. Playing baseball in the sun are the so-called boys of summer, while many of us are trying to have cookouts and picnics and are fighting our annual battles with the bugs of summer. Yes.
Bugs, bugs, bugs.
Coming up, some expert advice about the bugs of summer on this edition of Agriculture USA. I'm Gary Crawford. Now, some people don't mind the insects horning in on things. After all, we are invading their space. But for some,
I hate bugs, any kind of bugs.
And so many of us go out armed to the teeth with all kinds of devices, all kinds of candles and foggers and zappers, you name it.
Yeah, there's a lot of products out there, and lots of them don't work.
Just like me. That's Kate Chapman, insect expert, University of Nebraska. And yes, the home catalogs are full of products such as devices that send out ultrasonic sound waves that are supposed to repel the insects. She says studies show those don't work. Now, some folks have those electric bug zappers, and yes, she says they might zap a few mosquitoes and wasps, but also they zap many other beneficial insects that don't do anybody any harm. Now, of course, millions of us burn a lot of citronella candles and such, which are supposed to keep mosquitoes away. However,
there's a lot of lab studies that show citronella can have a repellent effect, but those are lab studies with high concentrations of citronella, and we're not getting those same concentrations in the candles. And so while we're getting some out there, it's just not enough.
So is there anything that will help keep our cookout reasonably free of mosquito bites? Kate says there is something we can do days ahead of the cookout.
The best thing you can do is if there's any standing water on your property or around is dump it. So mosquitoes, the first part of their life cycle, the larvae, they actually live in the water. So dump any that you can find.
Meanwhile, here's something to try at the cookout itself. I'll just turn this fan on.
Fans work great too. A lot of these insects like flies and mosquitoes, they're not great flyers. So if you get like a standing fan that you can put out, you're not only keeping yourself cool, but you're also going to deter these flying insects too.
Now, finally, there are several personal repellents, and they do help.
You know, they're approved. They work really well. We have DEET, we have picaridin, permethrin for clothing, and I think a third one that was just recently registered and approved. It's called oil of lemon eucalyptus.
Kate says nothing is going to work 100%, especially repelling
mosquitoes, wasps, and bees.
Oh, my. Yes, but what about ants? One of my favorite 50s science fiction movies is Them, the one about those giant ants.
Is there any type of gas we could use? No, we can't take a chance. It might poison the whole city.
Which is being invaded by a slew of giant ants. Kate Chapman says normal-size ants are a big enough problem, of course. In some cases, folks just do not want any ants around a cookout or picnic. No tolerance for them, but it's really hard to keep them totally away.
You can always go the pesticide route with ants, but, you know, ants live outdoors. That's just where they're going to be. And you can do a pesticide, but chances are they're going to come back a week later.
Now, some people try the various bait traps and such.
We usually only recommend those if we find them foraging inside.
Kate says she gets a lot of calls from people whose homes have been invaded by foraging ants. Now, you'd think a simple solution would be one of those poisoned bait products.
But a lot of it goes down to what type of ant problem it is. You know, here in Nebraska, we have a dozen different ant species, and some ant species prefer the really sugary bait traps, and some ant species won't even go near them. So if someone calls me, first thing I say is, well, we need to figure out what it is. Bring me a sample so I can look under the microscope, and then we can go from there.
Kate says many people come to her after searching online for so-called surefire insect control tricks. And indeed, she says when you search for those, you'll get literally
thousands of hits that are going to tell you, oh, vinegar works, oh, cayenne pepper, cinnamon, things like that. Just kind of be wary. That's going to be my biggest piece of advice.
Except to start by going to experts like her right off the bat.
Land-grant universities across the country, they have extension. And that's what we're here for, is to answer those questions and provide you research-based information.
And there are solutions out there for almost every insect problem that's bugging you, except maybe if the insects are 30 feet long. That one might be a problem. This has been Agriculture USA. I'm Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
A practice prohibited in the realm of Tennessee walking horses is the focus of recently updated regulations within the Federal Horse Protection Act. Rod Bain reports.
Ever heard of the term Soaring, S-O-R-I-N-G, in the context of the world of horse shows and exhibitions featuring breeds like Tennessee walking horses?
It's the practice of applying any sort of irritating or blistering agent. A caustic chemical can be by mechanical means, anything that's applied to any limb of any horse, and which can cause pain or distress or inflammation or lameness while the horse is moving.
A practice Melissa Carlson of USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services Horse Protection Program says was prohibited in the 1970s under the Horse Protection Act. But why was soaring allowed in the first place?
In the 1950s and 1960s, these soaring practices became widespread because, as trainers at the time described it, using a few drops of mustard oil achieved overnight what otherwise would take months of training. Pain caused by that soaring, either by the pressure of the ground of its foot or the pressure of the action device or the boot, makes the horse fling its leg up into the air higher, creating a more animated gait that was very desirable in the show ring.
APHIS was given enforcement oversight to prevent soaring practices in Tennessee walking horse show events. However, because of a personnel shortage in the 1970s, when the Horse Protection Act was enacted, designated qualified persons were trained as contracted inspectors at shows, events, and auctions. What was learned over decades of study, observation, and data was
the current inspection regime of utilizing DQPs is just not effective. There's an inherent conflict of interest within this system, and that the DQPs tend to be closely associated with the industry that they are regulating, and our data supports this.
Data such as DQPs less likely to enforce regulations preventing soaring at events if an APHIS oversight official was not present. That led to recent changes with the Horse Protection Act that are now a final rule. Among those amendments,
we are replacing the DQP inspection regime with our own horse protection inspectors, or HPIs. These HPIs are going to be trained and authorized by APHIS, and therefore we have oversight over the performance of the HPIs, and we have the discretion to be able to terminate the authorization of an HPI who is identified as poorly performing.
In addition,
since we are consistently identifying a higher rate of noncompliance in the Tennessee walking horses and racking horses that wear the stacked pads and the action devices, we are prohibiting all action devices in all Tennessee walking horses and racking horses. And we're also prohibiting the use of all pads, wedges, artificial extension of toe length, and all substances on the pasterns of Tennessee walking horses and racking horses, unless there is a documented therapeutic exemption for such use.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we'll be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Cindy Zimmerman has today's featured interview.
The 4th Annual Tech Hub Live Conference is coming up July 29th through the 31st in Des Moines, preceded by the Women in Ag Tech meeting on July 28th. Right now I'm speaking with Laura Sawinski, Crop Life Group Editor for Meister Media Worldwide, which coordinates the event. And so, Laura, let's talk about what we can look forward to at this year's Tech Hub Live. And let's start out with your keynote speaker this year.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. Last year, we had NASA's Dr. Alyssa Woodcraft as our keynoter, and she was talking about the satellite imagery and all the stuff that the space agency is doing to kind of bring some data down to the ground level. So this year, we are definitely on the ground, terra firma, if you will, with Ted McKinney. And Ted McKinney is the CEO of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, so NASDA. And some of his previous work has included Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Agricultural Affairs with USDA. So super well-versed, honestly, on ag trade policy, imports, exports, accessing foreign markets for U.S. ag. So he's from Indiana, and he also served previously as the director of the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, and grew up on a farm, grain and livestock farm in Indiana, and graduated from Purdue with a degree in agricultural economics. So, this year, a little bit tighter, of course, as far as the economics for the farm community. So we're really super excited to have him. And this year, we actually have a second keynote for day 2, and we are planning a Women in Ag Tech panel for this keynote. Women in Ag Tech, as you may recall, we launched it last year in Des Moines, co-located with Tech Hub Live. We have 6 women that will be on this Women in Ag Tech keynote panel on day 2. Reka Gorham from John Deere, Kim Nicholson from the Mosaic Company, Amy Asmus from Asmus Farm Supply, and she is the chair of the board for the Agricultural Retailers Association this year as well. Jennifer Edney from Edney Distributing Company, our Women in Ag Tech ambassador, Joyce Hunter, who is now with Mission Critical, and Dr. Andrea Arias. She's the VP of Data Science and Crop Testing over at Your Bioscience. So I'll have 6 super all-star women on day 2 for the keynote.
Well, speaking of Women in Ag Tech, as you said, they kicked off that group in person last year at Tech Hub Live, and you'll be doing another Tech Hub Live with Women in Ag this year, right?
Indeed. So Monday, July 29th, we will actually have a full day program. Last year when we kicked off Women in Ag Tech, when we launched the initiative, it was a half day. This year on Monday, the 29th, we'll have a full program from 10 a.m. until 5:30. And our keynote is Wendy Cernick from Corteva. So we're excited to have Wendy. We'll have some breakouts and a couple of features, including a presentation from the Nature Conservancy, one of our sponsors actually this year, along with Corteva. Should be a great time for sure.
Well, in Tech Hub Live, it's an evolving conference. So what else is new this year?
I hesitate to say bigger and better, because it always sounds like, yeah, everything is bigger and better. But, as we evolve this event and we see, a really more diverse group of attendees and exhibitors. So this year, in addition to, all the goings on that we have with panel discussions and solo presentations and keynotes and general sessions, we have added on day 2 workshops. And these are really hands-on interactive workshops. And these will be on Wednesday from 2 to 4:30. And we have one on drones and another on biologicals, particularly as they pertain to row crops. So Matt Mouse with HTS Ag, he's going to be presenting along with Kevin Bubb, professor of Ag at Ellsworth Community College. And HTS Ag, they've been a great supporter of ours. They have a truck trailer that they've converted into like a drone classroom on wheels. So, but inside the trailer, there are, screens and ways to teach and show things. So we're super excited about that. And then our second interactive workshop is on biologicals. Jeff Wessels from Frenchman Valley Co-op will be kind of giving a biologicals 101, if you will, really kind of drilling down. And, we've kind of been asking around in the last 4 or 5 months, doing some phone calls and talking to folks in the industry. What is it about this sector, and what is it that we could teach and learn? How should we present this? And pretty much the consensus was, when it comes to biologicals, we really have to start truly from the beginning and really have to understand this. So Jeff's going to lead up that workshop. So, and then attendees can kind of expect what they've come to know from the last 3 or 4 years, which is chock full on the exhibit floor with exhibit booths and fireside chats and tech talks and roundtable discussions in the morning. And again, like I said, the panel presentations, two tracks and solo presentations are very popular, All Farmers panel. And Bruce Erickson from Purdue giving highlights from this year's Crop Life Purdue Ag Retailer Survey. So bigger and better for sure.
Well, and we are coming up very quickly to Tech Hub Live. It will begin on July 29th with a welcome party at Ricochet in Des Moines and end on the 31st. And once again, we have the Women in Ag Tech meeting all day on the 29th. So what do people need to do if they want to learn more or register?
So we are updating our website every day. So techhublive.com. Swing by techhublive.com. Everything you need to know is there, and including information on Women in Ag Tech on Monday the 29th.
All right, we'll see you soon then. Tech Up Live coming up July 29th through the 31st in Des Moines. I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. Now for more news. A collaborative effort to prevent the spread of several invasive fruit fly species in the Golden State is making progress in effort to protect fruits and vegetables from potential damage. Rod Bain has more.
Progress reported in reducing quarantine areas associated with invasive fruit fly species in California.
Over the last year, we had 4 different species of fruit flies that were detected and that we established quarantines for. 2 of them, the Tau fruit fly and the Queensland fruit fly, were first ever in the Western Hemisphere quarantines.
With quarantines also implemented for Mediterranean and Oriental fruit fly species, according to Richard Johnson of USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. Now comes word of both the reduction of the Oriental fruit fly quarantine area in 2 Southern California counties and eradication of the Tau fruit fly in Los Angeles County. Johnson says the progress is a collaborative effort between APHIS, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and local stakeholders.
With this set of quarantines, we mobilized a lot of people, had a lot of volunteers from the USDA staff go out there to help participate.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Heat stress and heat stroke can sneak up on you without you being fully aware of it. Gary Crawford has more.
During this blistering summer, millions of us are either coping directly with the record-breaking heat or certainly have heard news reports about it. It's big news.
More than 125 million Americans are under heat alerts. That's more than 1/3 of the United States population. In the coming days,
Reportedly, thousands of people have been suffering from heat-related illnesses. Hundreds have died from heat stroke this summer. And although some of us may say, nah, we're tough, heat doesn't bother us, one expert says
heat illness is something we shouldn't just kind of glance over.
That's Dee Jepson. She's a professor of safety and health at Ohio State University, and she says a lot of people get very sick from the heat and many lose their lives from it because the symptoms can sort of sneak up on you, and those symptoms may not be noticed at first by others around you. Also, she says the symptoms vary with each person.
Heat illness is really hard to recognize and hard to predict because each one of our bodies, are so different.
And susceptibility to the heat varies with age, with the kinds of medications we may be on, and with how acclimated we are to being in the heat in the first place.
And we also know that once a person has had heat stress or heat stroke, they are more susceptible to that again sooner.
So we're going to try to touch on the general symptoms to watch out for in ourselves and in others, starting with mild symptoms and working up to the more serious. And again, different folks will exhibit different signs of heat stress. First,
if you get a heat rash or any type of prickly or blistery parts of the skin, that's showing that your sweat glands have become clogged, your sweat glands are inflamed, and the sweat cannot evaporate from your body in these conditions.
Another early warning sign, heat cramps.
Whether that's in your legs, your arms, or your stomach. And really what's happening when our bodies are cramping, it's the loss of body salt through the sweat. And that causes the water to rush into our muscles, and that results in our cramps and our spasms that we get.
But as the effects of the heat really start to intensify and become more dangerous, we may experience
fatigue or dizziness, even irritability, impaired judgment, any type of lack of ability to concentrate.
Things are really getting serious at that point.
Now the heat is affecting our blood flow into our brain. The body's trying to redirect that blood to release the heat from the skin. But when it does that, it kind of starts to affect us through our whole nervous system.
And at that point, we have to get cooled down pretty fast because Jepson says when our body temperature goes above 100 degrees for any length of time out there in that heat,
that's in the fatal zone.
So those are some things to watch for next time, how to better handle the heat and avoid heat stress and stroke in the first place. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.